Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new remote training here at RPP. We've been offering remote training for quite some time, but we always required the athlete to come in-house for an assessment. Now we can do the whole assessment online and bring all of our services, pitching, hitting, and strength training to your doorstep. So, if you like what we do and how we do it, go to our website at rocklandpeakperformance.com and click on Remote Training in the toolbar. Thanks. The Behind the Scenes podcast. I'm your host, Nunzio Signore, looking to bring you great dialogue with some of the best in the world of player development. The world of training baseball players has changed dramatically during the past few years, and I'm looking forward to shedding some light here on what's the latest, what's the best, and what's really happening in the world of player development. Thanks for joining me for the ride. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Behind the Scenes podcast. Today we're sitting down and talking with Rutgers catcher Nick Cimillo. Before we begin, on a side note, I just want to mention that 3 days after recording this podcast, Nick was picked up by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the draft, and we could not be more happy for him. So, congratulations, my man. I've known Nick since 2016 when he came into RPP to train. In his final 2 years of high school, he was named Player of the Year in his section, and his first 2 years of college ball was twice named Preseason Player of the Year and earned Collegiate Baseball Freshman All-American, MLB Rookie of the Year, and All-MAAC First Team in 2019 while attending Manhattan College. By the way, he started all 103 games played there, I believe, right, Nick?
Yep, that's
correct. Right. He most recently transferred to Rutgers this past year, where as a redshirt junior, he has blown the roof off, holding a .385 batting average and a slugging percentage of over 700. Rutgers baseball had a historic year for their program, and it's fair to say that Nick was a big part of their success. This past Friday, Nick was named the District Player of the Year by the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association. That's quite an honor, and he is one of just 12 players nationally to receive this recognition, and is the only Big Ten player. So today we're sitting down and talking with Nick Cimillo. What's up, Nick? Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So first, tell us a little bit about the journey thus far. Starting from Suffern High School, ironically, was the location of my first facility was in Suffern. Had a lot of the Suffern guys, you being one of them. Tell us a little bit about your journey starting from high school.
Yeah, so I came into high school. It started on varsity as a sophomore. I actually started as an outfielder back then because they already had a catcher. So I played under Gamma for 2 years, Coach Ron Gamma, sophomore and junior. We had a lot of fun, a good team. My junior year, I started really getting into catching. I was starting catcher junior year and senior year. Yeah, it was fun. I had a good team. Played with Dylan Hoy, guys like Jack Scanlon. It was a good time. After that, I was getting recruited by Manhattan. At the time, it was Coach Duffy recruited me. He ended up leaving. Coach Coles came in, took the starting position at head coach job at Manhattan. Went there, had a lot of fun my freshman year. I played right field mostly my freshman year. I wasn't really a catcher. Again, I don't know why, but that's just how it happened.
You were playing, so you know.
Yeah, I was batting third. Ended up batting .350 that year. So my sophomore year came around, COVID hit, only played 13 games. So that kind of screwed everything up. Junior year came around. We were playing doubleheaders every weekend. It was a lot. It was a grind.
Yeah.
At Manhattan, we didn't have a lot of things. So I decided to transfer to Rutgers and ended up playing at Rutgers this past year.
And this year, Rutgers had a year for the ages. As a local Jersey program, it's been awesome watching you guys this spring. Tell me a little bit about the team and some of the variables that you think made this success happen.
Yeah, so first off, the coaching. I think it was really the coaching staff. They were incredible. They were the best coaching staff I've ever been under. Coach Steve Owens.
We're gonna talk about Coach Owens in a minute. I just yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. So I'll just start with just saying the coaching staff really brought us together as a team. The players, a lot of great players on the team. We came in every day. We were working hard, working our butts off. Everyone was on the same page. We wanted to, win the Big Ten. And every day at practice, everyone was there for pre-work. Got
So
after in
consistency.
practice,
So
consistency.
consistency is key.
Yeah, exactly. Guys would just, you want to go hit at night? We would go hit at night. We would just, everyone was on the same page. We all had the same goal in mind, and we're working towards that.
When that, you could feel when that kind of energy is happening between you and your teammates, it just feels different than other situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like we had a bond, and we
Yeah.
just loved being with each other and loved doing what we were doing.
Yeah. That's 50% of the battle. So Coach Owens, I'm just curious. This guy has won everywhere. What do you think makes him so effective?
Just a sheer will to win, I think. He just does everything in his power to win every game, every inning, every pitch. I mean, like I said, he worked our butts off every day. He came to practice. He was a great guy to be around, great baseball mind. I mean, he knew the ins and outs of baseball. I mean,
As-
everything
Was
he
it
taught us.
was it easy to work for him? Was he a my way or the highway guy, or is he kind of like, does he find a way to work with each individual guy
Nah,
individually?
he finds a way to work with each individual guy and work with your strengths, and then you find your strengths, and we'll work on your weaknesses just to make you that much better of a player.
Yeah, because there's a lot of coaches that they have success with my way or the highway,
Hmm.
and then there's a lot of guys that just doesn't work for, and they don't really want to ever give that up. And then there's like what I always call them, a little bit more forward thinking guys,
Yeah.
that kind of try to take each kid as an individual, each athlete as an individual, and it seems like that's what kind of guy he is. That's really good to hear. With the NCAA one-year rule waiver in effect, there's a lot of college athletes transferring from program to program. Often when athletes switch schools, it's related to a lack of playing time. In your situation, that really wasn't the case. Tell me a little bit about your decision and what brought you to Rutgers.
At Manhattan, I wanted to develop more as a player going into like my junior year. I wanted to end up trying to play professional baseball. I didn't feel like I was developing as best as I could there.
What was making you feel that way?
Just everything. I mean, even it comes down to the competition, I think. I wasn't playing my best baseball my sophomore and junior year. My numbers kind of showed that. And I just think I wasn't getting the coaching that I needed to be a better catcher, first off, and to really find my offensive game down.
Right. So when you sat down and you weren't having the best year, you kind of were checking the boxes and you were trying to see,
Yeah,
okay, how
exactly.
much of this is on me and how much of this do I need to be like maybe in a different environment?
Yeah, I'm not blaming anyone else. I mean, at the end of the day, it's me out there playing. But I think I just need a little push from someone.
Right.
At the time, I was a little
Yeah.
younger,
Guidance.
so I was just still trying to figure out, college baseball. Guys started to get to know me, pitch me differently, so I needed to like figure things out. I needed some help with that.
Well, I got news for you. Is no matter how old you get and how more experienced you get, getting a push from somebody is
Yeah,
always,
definitely.
if they're doing it in the right way, it's just always more beneficial to be around
Hmm.
guys that are pushing you. So, your last year with the Jaspers, you batted 284 with a slugging average above 500. This year with Rutgers, you batted 385 with a slugging average over 700. A bigger stage with much bigger performance. What are some of the things you did differently that you think helped contribute to this? Because a lot of times guys get on a bigger stage and their performance doesn't initially get bigger. Sometimes that can be intimidating. But what are some of the things you did differently that helped you adapt to that?
You know, um, Really, like you said, the big stage. I like playing on that big stage. It just feeds my game. Playing in front of like bigger crowds on a bigger in a better conference against better competition. I just love that. It makes me better as a player. Playing with the guys on my team, I mean, it just when you play next to someone who's just as good as you or even better than you, it just makes you that much better because you want to be just as good as them. So that helped me out. Adding routine into my game every day before practice, after practice, that helped me become a better baseball player.
So when you say add to your routine, what are you talking about when you're saying that?
Talking about like my offensive routine every day before practice, I would get in the cage and I'd do my tee work, multiple
Okay.
drills, soft toss, everything with our hitting coach, and then I would get into practice.
All right.
Do
So
my
tell us a little bit more in a little bit more detail about your pregame focus in the cage, because that was my
yeah.
next question. It seems
Hmm.
like you're kind of transitioning right into that. So that's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would get to the fields, early, get in the cage, set up the tee, do a lot of heavy bat stuff. I would do a lot of one-handed drills, just to get a feel for my hands. And then I would usually work in the front toss with like a short bat, just to get a feel for the barrel. That's at Rutgers, our hitting coach really harped on the short bat and just to help us find barrels more.
Right.
So that helped me out a lot. After that, I would go into just a little machine work, and we see some spin before a game. not that much. So I don't like to take too many swings before a game, and then I would jump into BP.
When you say you don't want to take too many swings before a game, what do you consider a good amount, and what do you consider too much for yourself?
Yeah, so usually I take about maybe for tee about 20 to 30 swings, and I would take like 2 rounds of front toss, and then take a round or two off the machine, and then get into BP. So around 50, 60 swings I would take before a game.
Great. Oh, I gotta ask you this question. This came from my hitting coach, Ethan. So he says, "What's up?" By the way, how does that plan and approach change pitcher to pitcher or game to game? How do you change that? Go into a little bit of detail about your thought process and how you're getting ready to approach a pitcher game to game.
Yeah, so I mean, before every game, the night before, we'd watch film, and that's where we determine our approach. And then personally, I would determine my approach. If guys throwing sliders away, he's living away, and the outside part of the plate, I try to just stay simple and just take my base hit to right field and stay up the middle. And if guys, throwing 96 with the fastball and he's living and dying by the fastball, I try to get my foot down a little earlier and just try to find a barrel and stay middle of the field. Mainly my approach is I like to hunt the fastball as much as possible, just because it's obviously the easiest pitch to hit. And if I stay on the fastball, anything else he throws is going to be slower than that. So I can just adjust my body to, slider, change up, whatever he throws. And at the end of the day, I like to just try to hit the ball up the middle.
How much pregame studying do you guys do on a guy?
So usually the night before we do like about 45 minutes to an hour of just watching who we're facing and then the whole bullpen. And then as the weekend series goes on, we just watch the starter. So it takes like 20 minutes.
So on the other side, on the gym side, I had asked you when you first came in this summer again. I had asked you how your strength training was going. You said pretty good. You said it's they got a pretty good program there. Tell us a little bit about your training. How much of a part does the weight room play in your day-to-day training?
Like at Rutgers mostly?
Yeah, at Rutgers.
Yeah. So, we would practice middle of the day around noon for like 3 hours, and then we'd get right into the weight room after for about an hour. And, we had 3 main lifts, our reverse lunge, our deadlifts, and our squats. And we just work off those. A lot of mobility we would do. Especially I would work a lot of mobility as a catcher for my lower body. During the season, we do a lot of arm care as well.
So during the season, did the number of days you were in the weight room change from September and October when you guys are playing games to like November and December when you weren't?
Yeah, in the fall is usually about 5. We work out 5 days a week every day.
Wow.
And then
even during games, even when you're playing games.
In the fall, yeah. In the spring, we'd work out twice a week.
Right.
2 to 3 times a week, depending on our schedule.
That's great. That's key to keep strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can't emphasize enough for guys to be lifting while you're playing ball. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Playing sports makes you weaker. It doesn't make you stronger, And I think a lot of guys think, once you start playing baseball, it's time to put the weights down. And that's not the way it works. I have to mention that Nick has great strength numbers. I've been training him for a while, and he comes in, and I had recently wrote an article on what is strong enough and how we work around that. And Nick comes in with great pre-season numbers when he is in the weight room, like what are the 500 and change trap bar. We know that we're not going to, like when Nick comes here, we know that when most guys are in a strength block, Nick does not need to be in a strength block as far as his posterior chain or his trap bar deadlift or his squat. His upper body is strong as well, but there's still room there. But when we deem a guy strong enough, which we do with Nick, we start training power for Nick. I believe that's what you're training right now with us, right?
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
The weights are getting lighter. And I just wanted to say that to the coaches. They may be listening. Here we have a really, really high level athlete. And if you look at him, he looks like a really big, strong physical presence. And you would think he does a lot of really heavy weightlifting with us in the weight room right now. That's really not the case. That's not Nick's lowest hanging fruit. I think once a guy gets strong, he needs to move faster. That's what we've been doing with Nick. And I think he, it's really suiting him well. Manhattan versus Rutgers. Can you draw any comparisons as well as some advantages or disadvantages for high school athletes considering different size school programs and program options? Can you tell me what the feel of was with a smaller mid-sized school as opposed to a larger school like Rutgers?
Yeah, definitely. It was a huge change for me, especially coming from Manhattan. I mean, we didn't even have a field at Manhattan. Nothing against them, but it's just like didn't have a locker room, didn't have a field. So going from like a school, like a mid-major school like that to Rutgers, it like kind of was eye-opening to me. because I had an indoor facility to work out in. I had a weight room whenever I needed it. I had a field, I had cages whenever I needed it. So I mean, it was a really big change for me, but it really helped me out to develop as a baseball player, like I was talking about before.
And what made you pick Rutgers? How did Rutgers come about? How did that surface?
Yeah, so I entered the portal last summer. I was playing up at the Cape at the time, and I decided I wanted to make a change. And Coach Owen calls me. He says, "Come in. I'm going to give you a tour." Blah blah. And I was talking to a couple other schools at the time, and so I go in. I visit Coach, and he was just that guy. He was just a really good presence. I felt like I like this guy. I think he knows what he's talking about. And he told me I'm going to come in and I'm going to catch every game, as many as I can, and you're going to be batting the middle lineup. I said, okay, that sounds good to me. And that's pretty much how it ended up.
And there it is. Like, you immediately like the guy. So back to that question about what makes a guy really a really great coach. First impressions are key. And your first impression of him was stellar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every athlete faces challenges as they develop. What would you say, looking back so far, were two of the biggest challenges you faced and how you tackled them? Like, what would you say, looking back, what are your aha moments around, wow, that was hard?
So I would probably have to say the pitching, like the way I got pitched, because my freshman year, I saw a lot of fastballs. No one knew who I was. I was just a freshman. Going from there to, especially to Rutgers, I started seeing a lot more spin, a lot more changeups, not a lot of fastballs. So that kind of like opened my eyes as like, I need to make an adjustment here. I need to make this. I need to figure out how to hit these guys. So that was a big challenge for me to face. I hurt my knee this year. That was a big challenge to overcome too.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I playing in Indiana. I slid in the home, jammed my knee in the ground. I ended up spraining my PCL, and I was out for 2 weekends, and it was just hard to come back. Not playing in the middle of the season. I was having a good year at the time, getting hurt, being on the bench, having to watch, and then I had to slowly work my way getting back into shape to catch every game and to start seeing live pitching. And it was a little difficult, bouncing back pretty well.
Tell me mentally how you kind of what you did to help get through that, because there's a lot of athletes that go through injuries, and it's it's probably one of the toughest things to sit there and watch everybody play ball while you're injured. What did you do, and what did you do to kind of like get yourself through that period, that transition period?
Yeah, I just told myself, let's just get to tomorrow. And I worked with our trainer every day for at least an hour to 2 hours, just rehabbing. So I just said, let me just give myself to tomorrow, and then maybe tomorrow I'll feel better. And then the next day I'll feel better. Next day I'll feel better. And eventually my knee started feeling really good, and then I got back in there.
And did you continue to work out the rest of your body while you were rehabbing your knee?
Yep.
That's key.
Everything.
A lot of guys, you go to physical therapy, or you go to your trainer, and they start to actually just start working on that knee, and they tell you to some guys will actually tell you to lay off the weights, whereas like, we have this big physical presence here who has a hurt knee. It doesn't mean that he can't work the other leg, and we can't work his core, and we can't work his upper body. I think a key thing for guys like you who are competitors and are athletic is to make you continue to feel athletic even while you're injured. So not being able to lift, is really starts to make you feel more like a hospital patient than actually an athlete. There's another thing I want to talk about with Nick, which I've noticed since he was a young kid in high school training at my facility. This is the epitome of the saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. This guy, when you see him, I've known him for years, I think since he was in 9th or 10th grade. He is a quiet guy. He comes in, he doesn't talk about himself a lot. He's very secure about himself. That's obvious when you look at him. But this is a perfect example of a guy who doesn't really flaunt what he does. And I just have to say, from a position of someone who trains a lot of athletes, a lot of these guys sometimes their mouths, are a little louder than their actual performance. And Nick's not one of those guys. Have you always been quiet like that? Is that kind of like your demeanor? Because I never see you. You seem like your foot could be on fire and you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, I've always just like to be humble as possible. I learned that from my father. He's always telling me that, just be humble, just baseball is a game of failure. So, I mean, one day you could be 4 for 4 home runs, the next day you could be 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts. So I've always harped with that. And I don't really like to talk about my accomplishments because I feel like I haven't really accomplished what I want to accomplish. I want to become a professional baseball player. And yeah, the things I've accomplished are good, and I'm really grateful for all of that. I'm not going to complain about that, but I just feel like I still have a lot more to do in my life, and I like to be humble about what I do, and I like to let my game speak instead of me speaking.
I'm going to tell you, it's a really redeeming quality. And for you guys out there, basically what he's saying is, what I'm saying is lose your vanity a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like most of the guys that I come in contact with that are really great, they realize that they are one of a lot of guys that are really great, and they understand that they've been given a gift and that can be taken away at any time, and they're humble about it. And I just wanted to talk about that a bit because I think it's really, really important for a lot of young guys that are in high school. I see a lot of them coming in and they walk in and I'm like, dude, you're throwing 81 miles an hour. Please don't walk around here like you're Randy Johnson. It's just, have a little bit of humility in yourself. Let us work with you. Let us know that, you're open to learn. Next question I want to ask you is about training. A lot of times it's early practice. Sometimes it's afternoon practice. How do you feel? Let's talk about the weight room. How do you feel the difference in your performance in the weight room? Some guys are morning guys. Some guys are afternoon guys. For you personally, do you feel that it matters, or do you feel like you get better results in the morning or in the afternoon when those workouts change?
Overall, I feel like it really doesn't make a huge difference, but I usually like working out in the morning. It just starts my day off right. I feel good after I work out in the morning. I feel a little stronger, just after waking up.
How about practice on the field?
Practice on the field during the morning, I don't really like. I like practicing a little later in the day. You're outside running around. It's just better to be towards the middle of the day, in my opinion.
Great. With the upcoming draft coming up, we've all got our fingers crossed for you, Nick. Based off of the success of that, how that pans out, what's next for you this summer and moving forward?
Yeah, coming off the season that I think I had a pretty good season. I
would say so.
I would like to start my professional career this year. I mean, I'm already 22 years old, so I like to start that as soon as possible. Obviously, if that doesn't work out, I still have one more year of eligibility at Rutgers, so I'm going to go back there and I'll be catching every day and I'll be playing there.
What are you studying at Rutgers, by the way?
I'm a labor relations student.
And can you explain a little bit of that, what that is actually doing?
Kind of like supply chain management. So like dealing with management, dealing with employees and collective bargaining contracts, stuff like that.
Awesome. That's great, man. Well, congratulations, Nick. It seems like the bigger stage, the bigger your performance. It seems like the more people that are watching you, the better you perform. So thanks for being a guest today, and good luck in the upcoming draft, brother.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nunzio. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Being that I've watched Nick's development firsthand since I believe he was a freshman or sophomore in high school, I wanted to conclude this podcast by speaking for a few minutes on long-term athletic development, because I really feel it's that important of a topic. When planning out a pitcher's long-term athletic development, we need to focus on 4 big parameters: age, size, and maturity of the athlete, arm care, strength training, and mechanics in their throwing program. Let's take a look at them one by one. So for age, size, and maturity, honestly, this is getting older and bigger. This involves a proper nutrition program designed to gain lean muscle mass. Increases in muscle size are directly related to how much force can be applied and how quickly. In my opinion, nothing will be a bigger deal breaker for throwing harder than getting stronger and putting on more muscle. How much each individual athlete needs to gain of lean muscle is different from individual to individual, but I believe Graham Lehman put out a great chart where you can reference your weight among high-level pitchers based on height. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast with Nick, I think a lot of people assume that once baseball starts, lifting goes out the window, and nothing could be further from the truth. Throwing makes you tight and tired. It doesn't make you stronger. Get into a good progressive arm care. This brings us up to number 2. You need a complete movement assessment to figure out where we're tight, where we're loose even. Cuff activation and mobility in the program, it's important here that we ensure that that rotator cuff is strong enough independently so they can help contribute to overall shoulder health. And lastly, we need stability. As a player, we need the rotator cuff to stabilize the head of the humerus so that it stays in the glenoid, in the socket. That's the whole mission, keeping the ball in the socket. And not only do we need them to stabilize, but we need them to do it quickly. This involves perturbations to make sure we improve the firing time of the cuff. So those three things in ArmCare: get a complete movement assessment to see your movement strategy, cuff activation and mobility work in your program, and working on some perturbations and cuff stability as well. Third, strength training. There should be three areas: long-term focus: lower body, core, and upper body. We need to make sure that in this program we're working on lower body strength and power, core strength and stability to help transfer that power from the lower half to the arm, linear and rotational power, like basically hip and shoulder separation, and most importantly, total athleticism are of the utmost importance. And to be quite honest, with 13 to 15-year-olds, even 16-year-olds, there's really nothing we need to work on except strength. No one is strong enough to be working on power at the age of 13, 14, and 15. They're going to produce more power by just simply getting stronger. So if your kid's involved in a program where you go in there and all they're doing is ladder drills and jumping up and down and running, that's great for their athleticism, but they're only producing as much power as they're strong enough to stabilize, and getting them stronger is where the focus should really be at that point. You may want to rethink their training. As far as mechanics go in a throwing program, let's talk about the throwing program first. We really need to work on a year-round throwing schedule to make sure that we're not encountering overuse. And yes, this includes time off. Once again, for our young guys, let's not worry about Rhapsody right away. I think we need to make sure they're moving correctly and then get them on the mound and make sure they're moving correctly on the mound first. Let's worry about data last. Give or take a few weeks, the throwing program that we look for young guys is around December 15th, we start working on mechanics. All the way through March 1st, we're throwing bullpens. Then, March 1st to June, into June, is the school season where they're in season. We're trying to get them in there to lift twice a week at least while they're playing school ball. And then in the summer, most of them are going to play summer ball, which is great. If we can limit those innings so they can also get in and work out, we may be able to work on velocity a little bit if they're not throwing too much. September and October, we work on movement of the ball and more mechanics. I really feel this is a better option than fall ball for a lot of guys. Get much more bang for your buck spending 2 months, 8 weeks with us or with someone where you're working on tightening up their skills on the mound and getting their body in better shape to start to really attack. And you know what? By doing that, we can get 2 more months of an off season to help build a bigger body and a more athletic body when it comes time to start throwing again in December and ultimately playing ball again in March. So in summary, I think trainers and coaches need to educate themselves with respect to working with kids. If you're going to get buy-in, remember, you're not training adults. It's a completely different animal altogether. Be passionate about what you do, and a young athlete will smell it on you. They'll buy in. So let's not forget the key pieces to long-term athletic development. One more time, maximize your buckets. Get into a good nutritional program. Get that size and maturity happening. Reduce the stress through arm care. Maximize your potential and your athleticism in the weight room by working on strength, and increase the efficiency and monitor your volume of your throwing program so we don't encounter overuse, which is murdering this sport with our young athletes. With that, I want to say thanks for tuning in again today. You can reach me at Nunzio Signori on Twitter. You can reach my facility at RPP_baseball on Twitter and Instagram. Our website is www.rocklandpeakperformance.com. And see you on the next one, man. Have a great, great day.